Welcome to Marriage Uncensored, the show you dare watch together. We're excited to talk about do opposites attract, this whole personal style indicator, and how people that are so different might get married, but how on earth they're going to live together over the long haul. I'm excited.
That's why we have Keis, President and CEO of Consulting Resource Group. And we're so thrilled because he's going to educate us not only on this whole idea of how to identify our personal styles, but the difference it makes in our relationships. Ken, I want to ask you, when things start going wrong between a husband and wife, it's easier to say, oh, it's just because you're a man and I'm a woman. It's just because we've been under so much stress lately. But you're saying a lot of it lies with the fact that we don't understand each other's personalities.
Absolutely. A lot of times we come into this world with unique differences, but we need to acknowledge those differences in one another and bring that into the marriage. And so sometimes we have this conflict because we haven't acknowledged that between each other.
And you use the word personal style. Now, how is that different from personality?
Well, personal style is part of your personality. In our model, what we acknowledge is we're very complex individuals. We have factors, and I know the factors would include our health or wellness, self-worth, which you've had programs on before, environment, the culture we're brought in, social teachers, environmental as far as emotional impact.
Families of origin.
Families, absolutely. Yeah. But personal style is what we come in the world with. It's sort of this innate right that we have.
Yeah, it's kind of how you engage with your world, right?
It's our preferences. It's how we see the world. It's the glasses that you're wearing. And each of us have a unique perspective. And if we don't understand that perspective, then all of a sudden we have conflict.
Okay, but now we got a situation where a lot of people are saying, well, as soon as I get my spouse like me, we'll have a great marriage. We'd spend a lot of time trying to make them become like us and change them. Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Now, what we need to do is understand them. What we need to do is to work with each other, because the opposite is also true. Is that if they understand me, maybe the acceptance level can go up as well. Right. So personal style, we believe, is consistent throughout our lifetime. It's the anchor point. It's the rock. It's the foundation by which we build our whole personality around. Otherwise, we'd be completely neurotic. I'd switch and I'd be like you, Christie, and you'd be like me in 5 minutes from now.
I've been told I am.
Lord help us.
Yeah, well, of course. Yes.
Now, you said that from the beginning. So are you saying that I am born with my personal style and it never changes?
There is a lot of debate out there about nature and nurture. Am I born this way, and does my environment develop it? What we embrace is both. There's a part that I am born with. Think about that. If you have two children, are they exactly the same? A lot of parents would say no, but they have the same parents, same environment, same social teachers, so why are they different?
Right.
It's that biological side of things.
Right. And it's interesting because a lot of people, would question that, but even as people that are, even twin studies show that their personalities grow different over time too. And that was something that was there, resident in them, and it doesn't change over time. Because there's something about who I am is who I am from the day I am born to the day that I croak.
And it's that acknowledgement that really can empower us to kind of intentionally engage the world. Be aware that our behavior at any given moment is having impact, either positive, negative, or neutral with others, including our spouse or parents. I mean, do parents ever have challenges with their teenagers? Yes. Sometimes that is personal style driven, nothing to do with teenagers and parents. It is that you are different than me and I haven't acknowledged that in our relationship.
Yeah. And sometimes we see this easier with our kids than our spouses. Because once you have 2 or 3 kids, you see that kid's a little different. If I did the same punishment or correction with the first one as I do the second, it's going to go really weird on me. Because they're different and how they take it's different. And so that's reflecting personal style. But I don't often throw that into my marriage, right?
No, but when we say most husbands and wives want to be close. I mean, they want that intimacy within their relationship. So how can this understanding actually draw them closer?
Well, one of the challenges, we're inherently self-centered. We want to have life reflect who we are. But we really need to honor our spouse, our partner, our significant other in their uniquenesses, because what they can gift to us is embracing their strengths, which might be different than ours.
Right.
Ken, now how much does how ready I am or how willing I am to change come into play here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can have all the knowledge in the world, and when we talk about readiness and willingness is my attitude to embrace the possibilities of personal style changing my life. Readiness is the ability to. Like you said, spouses don't get up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to see if I can make your life miserable today. Right. And to have a lousy marriage.
Sometimes it does feel like it, though.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I'm not married to your spouse, so that could happen. But the reality is that we all want to be successful, but I might not have the abilities to. Yes. Let's say that Dave has a tumor and I'm really excited and willing to do the surgery, but I've not been to medical school. Guess what? He's probably going to die when I put him on the table. I don't have the abilities. And that's where personal style and the concept and the information equips people to really engage and understand each other to move forward.
But why people don't jump into trying to understand their spouse and how they operate, bettering the marriage, is because of that selfishness you pointed out. I'm too worried about getting my needs met. I'm too worried about making you meet my needs and changing you to have my needs met. And so I'm so serious about fixing you, I don't look at that need. You know?
Ken, give us a brief overview. Help us understand what the main personal styles are.
Well, all of us are born with 4 different personality types, just different intensities. Behavioral action, we'll go into this later, which is action-oriented, driven kind of individual who's extroverted and kind of in charge. An affective expressive, which, I mean, if we think about your personality, just vivacious and energizing and engaging in people. Cognitive analysis, somebody that's really detail-oriented and organized in interpersonal harmony, which really has the gift of serving others. All of us have all 4 of those personalities, just at different intensities.
Just different levels.
Different levels. And as the intensity rises, meaning my orientation or my preference, then my inclination towards the behaviors and the needs and wants actually increase.
Wow.
So a lot of us are really combination of these, which we call it patterns.
And I tell you what, I know that those of you watching right now, you're like me, you're baited. You're saying, okay, well, what personal style am I, and what's my spouse, and how can this help our marriage? So you've got to stay with us.
Personality Plus. Do opposites attract or attack? Well, I've been talking to the audience. We think you start out being attracted to each other, but end up attacking each other. So that's why I want to go back to you, Dr. Dave and Ken, and help us get back to the attraction.
Great. Ken, let's go back quickly. The PSI, what's it designed to do? Get that straight for me.
It's really to help people establish and understand what their personal style is and the levels that they have, so they can be intentional in all parts of their lives, relationships, work, parenting, marriage. And so you'll know that there's implications, both positive and negative, on each one of these dimensions.
So as I understand myself better, I recognize how I could influence a situation in a negative way.
Oh, absolutely. And so that we need to take responsibility for our behavior. Our behavior has impact. And sometimes you've met these people. They're oblivious. They don't know what's going on. They just knocked over the bowling pins and they said, oh, by the way, you're in my lane, not yours.
Okay. Now let's talk about the levels, because we're not all just pure one personal style.
Well, that's the challenge. A lot of times there's been a lot of these assessments out there before where they try to pigeonhole and says, well, you're just a B or behavioral action or drive or all these tags. We found that the majority of people are a balance or a blend or what we call patterns, where they have 2 or 3 of these that are very equal. And that really confuses your spouse, because you can move back and forth very quickly. And all of a sudden, oh, you're in a kind of a different mode right now. And so there's this balance, and the personal style indicator will help you to identify what that is.
And if my spouse and I took one together, it would also help me understand how they operate. Tell me the benefits of that.
Well, absolutely. Our firm used to do a lot of marriage counseling. And what we did is we get focused on ourselves, this self-centeredness that we talked about last time. We take this personal style indicator and we focus on this little piece of paper or take it online. And as a result of that, now I start to accept and understand you, that you didn't get up to irritate me this morning.
There you go.
You actually were born that way. And that's that difference.
I'm
where you
born of pain is what
well,
you're
yeah,
saying.
born of, well, that's
it.
possible.
Right.
And so we have this, we're attracted to the differences and the deficiencies in ourselves. But once we kind of live together for a while and are married, all of a sudden that starts to grate. It starts to irritate, because that's not me.
Right. Now, you implied that opposites do attract to a degree. What have you seen in your work with people?
Well, we've seen both. We've seen where the opposites attract, and that has its own issues. And then we also have individuals who are the same that then get married, and it has the other different implications. There's no right. I want to be clear to everybody that's watching. There's no right. There's no wrong. You shouldn't feel bad about your personality or try to change it. You need to accept it and understand it so you can move forward, be intentional, and really have a fulfilling life through this process.
And it's really learning how to complement each other based on our personal styles and understanding those styles.
Oh, absolutely. So that we can then kind of embrace and support one another, and that we can play to our strengths rather than try to beat you up to you to become me.
Now, we've had some fun here, because we've had some couples take the PSI, and we got some direct characteristics here that will be fun for you to talk about. So first of all, we have Chris and Jody, who married about 5 years, and one is a stronger B and one is quite a strong I. They're a B and an I. Now, what's going to happen in their marriage?
Well, there's going to be some interesting pulls and tags because you have the behavioral action person who wants to be in charge, and I who really wants to defer and serve. But it is constantly that way. The interpersonal harmony individual might be deferring at the expense of their own needs, and then you'll start to have sort of an anger toe or some stubbornness that will come into play there. So they need to acknowledge that. Am I really taking advantage of you? I'm not meaning to, but that is the implication of what could happen.
And sometimes in counseling, because I worked with people in this personal styles, you have the one person saying, you're controlling. You have to make all the decisions. You know, why are you so selfish? But that's kind of how they defer because no one else is taking charge, so I'm about to do it.
And they're wired that way so that they can move forward. And so the understanding is, oh, you didn't try to do that to take it away from me. And sometimes then we need to soften our personality. We can talk about that later, where I take responsibility that my taking control is offensive to you, and maybe I need to back off.
And sometimes, though, the C or the I backs off so much to make harmony that they're not engaged enough.
Oh, no, and then, of course, there can be resentment that builds up, and you don't even know that's happening because they're a nonverbal individual, and unless you take the time to engage them, all of a sudden, you've heard these stories, they come back and all the furniture's moved out. Those kinds of things can happen.
Okay, beautiful. We're going to go to Christie, who are going to talk right now to Chris and Jody.
Now, Jody, you're the B, and Chris, you're the I, and Jody, you were very surprised when you found this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so surprised how high Chris was in the interpersonal, and it makes a lot of sense to me now when we go to a company's house and it's time to go, and he stays and continues the conversation and keeps chatting and keeps, you know, things going, and all I want to do is leave. You know, it's time to go, we have to go, and now I have great understanding and appreciation for him.
And Chris, how can this new understanding make a difference for you in your marriage in the future?
I think it's what like Dr. Keis was saying, understanding how Jody's wired. Jody and I both lead a team of young people, and after school we meet with them, and as a leader I'm thinking, well, Jody's doing most of the talking, and realizing, well, maybe I'm the guy, I should be doing more of the talking, but realizing Jody, that's just how she's wired. She loves to be in control, she loves to take charge, so I'm okay with just kind of stepping back and knowing I can still lead in a different way even though she's being more vocal.
Oh, that is wonderful, and that will make a difference in your relationship in the future. Back to you.
Well, it's interesting, Ken, because the thing I love about just hearing Jody and Chris talk is there's an understanding of each other going on.
Well, it's around acceptance of that I'm created and I have this uniqueness that I bring into life. And that if I can acknowledge that, and then we can start working together. Here's the reality. We need each other. If there were just all one style out there in the world, just behavior, there'd be blood on the side of the streets.
I've said before, you don't want more than one of me around.
So I'm not going to comment to that. But the possibilities is that we need each one of the dimensions to fulfill the obligations of life and in partnership. And so we can embrace that.
Well, let's look at our second couple now. Darcy and Beth, married 16 years. Okay, she is a high A, he is a high C. Again, different than Chris and Jody. But let's talk about the implications of these two personal styles.
Well, affective, expressive individuals are really spontaneous and really kind of engage life and go out there. The cognitive analysis person needs something that's more organized, more systemized. So they want to have structure. They want to have planning. So you could have this conflict where the affective expressive, let's just go out for a movie. When? In 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm not ready. I don't have anything together. And so they could have this conflict. Well, you need to give me more time. And the other side, well, you're never spontaneous enough. I just want to go out and do things, but you plan and it just never happens. And so it's just, again, being able to move and shape. We need each other and work through that process.
Right. And so understanding those different styles are going to really help that marriage.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when we did marriage counseling, we would not counsel the couples until they took the personal style indicator first.
Beautiful. We're going to let Christy talk to Beth and Darcy now about their differences. Go.
Beth, you're the C. And I'm sorry, Darcy, you're the C, and Beth, you're the A. Now, Darcy, how would this knowledge have helped you at the beginning of your marriage if you would have known this?
I think being able to understand that Beth had a much greater social need than I had, and her just knowing that, so that when she was always wanting to do things, I would be more willing to go along with that.
And Beth, how can this shape your marriage in the future for the next 15 years and make it even better?
Well, I think just knowing how each other draws energy is really helpful. It's going to really help us. And so I now know that Darcy needs a day alone to regroup himself, and then he can go back to the battle, whereas I need people around me. And understanding that, I think, is going to make a big difference.
I am so excited about what these couples have learned and the difference that it can make in their relationship. In fact, Marraige Uncensored is so behind this personal style indicator that we're now offering it at an alumni session for our Family Life Marriage Conferences. I continue to urge you, you've got to go to our website and find the marriage conference nearest to you. Stay with us.
Personal styles. No one is any better than the other, but they're very different. Yeah. Keis, you mentioned the word intentional. Tell me why that word's so important.
Well, when we think about our personal style, a lot of people just show up and they're out there in the marketplace or out there engaging relationships. We want them to be aware of what their personal style as far as the impact personally and with others. And what the personal style does is help them to have a roadmap to be intentional with their behaviors, intentional with their career choices, intentional with their interaction with their significant others in relationships.
Okay, let's take the picture. A bunch of people are at a business party. Give me a picture of the bees. Who are the bees at this party?
Behavioral action individuals. They're extroverted, they're task-oriented, and they're nonverbal. They'll go to the party when they want to, how they want to. They'll leave what they want to. If it's the costume party, they won't even wear a costume because this is a stupid costume. And so they'll come and they'll go. Some people might call them introverted. No, they're completely in charge. That's the kind of people they are.
Okay, who are the A's at the party?
They're affective expressive. They're the ones wearing everybody else's costumes, and they've been able to brought them in, and they engage, and they actually get energy from connecting with other people.
They want to win the costume party.
Oh, absolutely, and they're plugged right in there. And they're the ones of that stereotypical kind of expressive personality.
And the C's?
Cognitive analysis, really expert-driven. Now, some people might say accountants are, but that's not really true, but they're really the expertise, cautious, careful. These are the kind of people that you want to have as airplane mechanics.
They planned the business party.
Yes, they did, and it needs to be perfect.
And they're going to also keep scores to who really won it.
Yes, and of course, if you came late, then I know about that as well.
That's right.
And the I's?
Interpersonal harmony. These are people that have the gift of servanthood towards others. They'll be able to kind of serve others and have put their needs above others.
Here's a drink. Can I get you something else?
Yes, and they're actually aware. They're consciously aware that you have a need versus the bees that just drove over and they didn't even know you were there.
Okay, let's go to their greatest needs in a marriage.
Right.
What do bees need from their spouse?
Bees need to have independence is one of their #1 needs. So having somebody that's telling them what to do, they need challenge, and they need that sort of independent area, even though they want to be connected, is that they don't like touchy-feely. And so if you have a high bee child, if you want to hug them and they're 13 years old, oh, go away, Mom. I don't want to be touching you. Don't take it personally. They just need their space.
Okay, what do C's need from their spouse?
Oddly enough, C's need intimacy. They have the greatest need to connect deeply with their significant other. So you need to spend time. You need to give them space over their decisions. You need to have them organized.
As quick as you can, A's and I's. What do they need?
A's need to have fun and variety and just be able to engage that. And I's, they need to have a careful, harmonious environment. So there's no conflict.
They work to get along.
Yes, they do.
Wow. I'm very excited to be able to take this platform to share with you some amazing summary principles how you can get along better in your marriage based on personal styles. And you know what? You can go to our website, marriageuncensored.com, and you can take the personal style with your spouse for the cost of just going to a movie together. Do that. You'll never regret it. Stay with us.
Do opposites really attract? Well, Keis said of Dr. Dave and his wife Donna Lynn's results that they are absolute proof that opposites attract because they are so different. Dr. Dave, do you think, obviously you do, that opposites attract?
Well, let's start with this. If we set the PSI aside, I've done a lot of marriage counseling, an awful lot of marriage counseling, and help people get into good marriage situations. And what happens is people, much like two hands come together, they look for somebody who's going to fill the gaps. Right? They look for somebody who's going to fill the voids in their life, and so there is a tendency for me to look for something that I don't have in me. I respect something I don't have, and so there is the tendency to look for somebody who complements and completes me, much like two hands coming together.
And that's so true, because I remember when I met Mark, I was so attracted to the fact that he could play hard, and I'm not good at that. And I thought, wow, you've got something you can add to my life. So what happens when you're attracted to your spouse, but then that thing that attracted you starts to be what absolutely drives you crazy?
Well, it's very possible that it has to do with that selfishness that Ken brought up. Let me illustrate with this coin. Got a loonie here, and of course heads and tails. Understand that a personal style, a trait, for instance, like a person that might be strong-minded, confident, persevering. You take that the other way, when selfishness is around, they are self-centered, they are selfish, they are driven for themselves, and it depends whether they're being selfish or not as to what side of the coin is really showing. We're thankful. Oh, you're so great. You're persevering versus you're stubborn. You're arrogant, you know. And so all these characteristics in a person's life have their place, and if I'm living selfishly, often the wrong side of the coin is showing. And that's why sometimes the thing that attracted me becomes my nemesis, because either I'm being selfish or my spouse is being selfish.
So are the differences between us as husbands and wives really, in essence, good?
Yeah, I think the differences are good because we're first of all attracted to those differences in the first place. And through selfishness, yes, it complicates it, but these differences are what makes music in a marriage. Like if I married somebody completely identical to me and made her even more like me, one of us becomes redundant. Okay? But the point is, as I marry somebody who's my complement, there's, well, much like two notes. Okay? Two notes, we know that harmony is more beautiful than unison. And yet sometimes we get married, we're going to make our spouse like a certain way, become like us. And that's just unison. It's not as beautiful as harmony, which are two notes that are distinctly pitched in such a certain way that they're completely different. They complement each other and they sound beautiful together. And that's what a great marriage is. And it's beautiful because this harmony is what a marriage is all about. You see, if you understand each other's differences and appreciate that it's not wrong to be different, then you go from there to celebrate. I like the fact that you're different. And I can mine that difference over 20, 30, 40 years. We're 31 years married now. You and Mark, 19 or so. And the bottom line is you can keep mining over the years because there's such a vast difference in who we are as husband and wife. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, I hope you've enjoyed watching Marriage Uncensored. And you know what? You will never, ever regret putting your marriage and family first. Take care, and God bless.